Hi, I'm Kara-Leah, and I'm exploring in this series of videos what it's like to wake up in the world and how we take direct action to create a more beautiful world. So in the last video I talked about shifting states of being, how we can feel when we're in that state of fear or scarcity consciousness, and how you shift into a state of abundance or love or oneness, which are all kind of airy-fairy words, right? So I've been playing with this for the last week, and sometimes it feels like these are the two kinds of nervous systems that we've got. Like, we're either in fight, flight, or freeze, which is when we're in a state of fear, or we're relaxed and at ease. And so I'm looking at it from that perspective, from the perspective of either being in a state of tension or in a state of relaxation. One thing I've found really useful is by setting a clear intent. So rather than living reactively, so reacting to circumstances and to people and to what's going on out there, what I'm attempting to do, and it's all a bit of a giant experiment, is to live with the intent of coming from a place of generosity. So what that means is that when something happens, as I start to react to it or to respond, I check in and go, what would be the generous response right now? And so I'm attempting to come from generosity, and not just generosity of money, but generosity of attention, generosity of time, generosity of myself. And the reason I've chosen generosity is that it's a concrete word. Like, when I think of being generous, I get a real clear sense of what that means. Whereas when I think of coming from a place of love, you know, it's a little bit airy-fairy, and it's like, am I coming from love? Am I not coming from love? Am I being loving to myself and to the other person? It's hard to tell sometimes, right? It seems a bit, just airy-fairy. When I think of being generous, it's really clear to me in any situation what generosity looks like and also what it feels like. So when my son is, trying to get my attention and I'm in the middle of doing something and he's like, Mum, check this out. Part of me wants to go, hey, hang on a minute, wait, I'm doing this, etc., etc. And I can feel myself getting tense. And so that's coming from that place of tension. But if I catch myself and think, what's the generous thing to do right now? Take a breath and say, either I'll be with you in 1 minute and then I can give you my full attention. I really want to hear what you've got to say. Or just give them my full attention right now. And what I notice is that being generous with my attention has a different feel. It feels relaxed. I feel at ease. What I've noticed is that when I'm aware of coming from a generous space, I'm no longer clinging to something, or I'm no longer trying to prove something, or I'm not holding on to an idea. So if I'm in an argument, for example, not that I get in a lot of arguments, but if I'm in an argument, there's a sense of, instead of defending my position or trying to show that I'm being right, that instead, if I'm coming from this place of generosity, it's more about listening to the other person, trying to understand their perspective, and seeing, well, what can I give here? What is it that I can give? I mean, is it really that important that I hold on to something in this space, in this argument? So this is what's fascinated me, right? Because it's like, oh, wow, generosity. And it's amazing. It's really amazing how it starts to shift things. What's underlying it, though, I think is coming back around, is this idea that rather than being a reactive being, we be an intentional being. Because the reality is that most of us, when we're living our lives, we're being reactive. So we have ideas, thoughts, beliefs about the way that the world is, about what it is we want to experience, about who we are. And when things are happening out there, we tend to react based on all of that. When you start to live intentionally, it's more that you let go of all of that. You let go of the way you think the world is, the way you want the world to be, the way you think other people should be, the way that you think circumstances should be. And instead, you're focused on, what is the energy I'm bringing to this situation, and how can I bring the energy, for example, of generosity into this situation. So it feels like you're starting to create space for generosity to arise, and then that takes... It's like the intangible, it's like the formless, right? And then that takes form in the way that people respond to you and in the circumstances that are created. It's really simple. This is what is blowing me away. It's a really simple thing to do. It's not necessarily easy though, because I have to catch myself. And even now, talking to you on the video, I'm aware of situations where I'm like, I missed an opportunity to be generous then. I missed an opportunity then. And of course, I don't beat myself up at that. I just look at it, and that's just data, it's feedback, and it's an awareness that I can be more aware. So when I'm driving in traffic and someone's trying to get in or someone's trying to turn the corner, what's the generous thing to do right now? When you're hanging out with other people, what's the generous thing to do right now? What's the generous thing to do right now? What's the generous thing to do with myself? And that simple action feels like a whole new way to live. So I'm just going to keep experimenting with it. I'm going to keep intending to come from a space of generosity. And as I do that, I'm going to notice how it unfolds. I know it seems like a small thing to do, but if you think about it, just to use a really big situation, if you think about Israel right now, what would happen if the people making decisions there decided, well, hang on a sec, let's stop worrying about who's right and wrong. Instead, let's come from a place of generosity. How could we be generous in this situation? How would that change things? How would that shift things? Same with the Greek debt crisis. What would happen if the rest of the European Union said, hang on a sec, how could we be generous in this situation? What could we do, and how would that shift the situation? So while it seems like a small, simple thing to do, it's not that easy, and I think it would have huge ramifications if we became a culture that lived generously. We were generous with our time, with our attention, and with the resources that we have with those who have less than us. And that's the kind of world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where people are generous. So I'm starting with me, and that's my practice at the moment, and that's what I'm doing to help shift things. Because things are always shifting and changing, right? That's just the nature of life. And so as a way of moving away from coming from fear and from scarcity and from I don't have enough and there is not enough and I can't afford this, I'm choosing to come from a place of generosity. My takeaway from this, maybe just reflect on what drives you. What space do you come from in your life? And is there some way that you could intend to come from a specific place? And it may not be generosity, you might choose something else may be more appropriate for you in your life where you are right now. But that's the takeaway. Take a moment just to reflect on what drives you, where you come from, and how your life might look if you were to intend consciously to come from a specific space. I'm Kara-Leah, and there will be more of these.